The 65-kilometer stretch of the Middle Rhine Valley, with its castles, historic towns, and vineyards, graphically illustrates the long history of human involvement with a dramatic and varied natural landscape. Since the prehistoric times, the Middle Rhine Valley has been one of the most important transport routes in Europe, which served to promote the migration and exchange of ideas, products, and culture between the Mediterranean region and the northern part of the continent. It is intimately associated with history and legend, and for centuries has exercised a powerful influence on writers, artists, and composers. Bacharach was the center of the wine trade in the late Middle Ages. Vines had been cultivated on the lower slopes of the valley since Roman times. Bacharach's setting is very picturesque. The town lies at the center of the Four Valley region, with its sprinkling of small towns. The town of Bingen is located at the junction of the rivers Rhine and Nye. With its many timber-framed houses, it has retained its medieval appearance nearly intact. Many historical records and legends exist regarding the tower on the small island in the Rhine just in front of Bingen. It is a fact that the Romans built a small defensive fortification here, though it gradually fell into disuse during the Frankish period, when Hatto II became Archbishop of Mainz in 968 and began his rule over the territory of Bingen. The tower woke from its long slumber. The castles of the Rhine, some just remnants, reflect a turbulent history dating back to feudal times, when local lords used their fortress-like dwellings as protection against invasion and to collect tolls from the ships that plied the river. These castles were usually constructed on cliff tops, overlooking the river and the villages below. Many Rhine castles did not survive the ravages of time and war, but of those that did, some have been restored. Here's a castle, Liebenstein. If walls could talk, the medieval castles of the Rhine Valley set at the heart of the Mid-Rhine would speak volumes about their tumultuous history. Today, the area is a major visitor attraction, both for its historical relics and its spectacular natural scenery. The valley's landscape begins to change at Oberwesel, with the transition from the soft clay slates to hard sandstone, resulting in a series of geological narrows. The Church of Our Lady in Oberwesel is the finest example of Gothic architecture in the Middle Rhine. Construction on the red-colored church was begun in 1308. Oberwesel, the historic town on the romantic Rhine, is surrounded by an almost completely preserved medieval city wall featuring gates and towers. Of the original 21 defensive towers that once stood along the city wall, 16 have survived to the present day. Parts of the approximately 3-kilometer-long city wall are still accessible. The gate tower on the city wall side facing the Rhine has been restored according to the original blueprints and forms part of the accessible part of the city wall. Oberwesel was settled by the Celts around the year 50 BC, and by about 400 AD, the town was administrative seat of the Franconian kingdom. Thanks to its history stretching back over 2 millennia, Oberwesel possesses more than its share of historical sites. The narrow streets with their beautiful medieval houses, towers, and churches breathe a charming old-world atmosphere. The Gutenfels Castle, located on a hilltop near Kaub, is one of the most important examples of the Hohenstaufen military and domestic construction style. Across the river on the right bank is St. Gorshausen with its castle. The Katz Castle was used as a bastion and military base to protect the Rheinfels Castle. Together they formed a fortified bulwark with a barrier for levying the Rhine toll. The extended view up to the bend of the river at the Lorelei was also of great importance to secure salmon fishing. The position of Katz Castle on the mountain ridge was chosen especially because it could not be conquered from the valley. The appearance of the Middle Rhine Valley is characterized by the interaction between its natural features, such as the steep-sided narrow river valley, and human interventions including the creation of vineyards, fortresses, historic towns, and villages, which together create the touristic image of the romantic valley. Here is a Lorelei slate cliff in the upper Middle Rhine Valley World Heritage Site, near the town of St. Gorshausen. The name Lorelei appears in a romantic ballad written by the poet Clemens Brentano in 1801. In this ballad, Lorelei is a beauty from Bacharach who wants to take her own life after she discovers that her true love has been unfaithful. St. Gorshausen is centrally located not far from the legendary Lorelei Rock. The old part of the town, with its two ancient city towers and the remainders of the old defensive wall, is particularly idyllic. The first traces of human settlement date from the period that the Lorelei Plateau was level with the Rhine River, approximately 600,000 years ago. During the Middle Ages, the Lorelei was well known, along with the Binger Loch, as the most dangerous section of the Rhine. Many mariners in their wooden dinghies met their fate here. The fortress of Marksburg, along with Pfalzgrafenstein, the only surviving medieval fortifications on the Middle Rhine, towers above Brubach. Marksburg is the only castle along the Middle Rhine River to have survived completely intact, since it was home to knights in the Middle Ages. The other castles along the Rhine have suffered damage by sieges during the many wars, with the ones that have survived as more than ruins having been rebuilt over time, especially in the revivalist 17 and 1800s. Because of its position high on a promontory difficult to attack from any side, Marksburg Castle has survived in much of its original form, although with some later additions from 700 years of occupants. Dating from the 14th and 15th centuries, it is based on French and Italian models. The impressive fortress, mainly from the 14th century, includes a tower, several buildings, passages, and bastions on a rock cone above the small romantic city of Brubach. Visitors ascend to the large castle kitchen of the Gothic Great Hall with its enormous fireplace in which a steer could be grilled whole, winepress dating from 1767, window benches built into the extraordinarily thick walls, and a vast array of cooking implements. The adjoining room is the magnificent Rittersaal, the great banqueting hall with its imposing fireplace, Gothic chest, and armchair. Next, visitors enter the castle's chapel with its beautifully painted walls and ceilings from 1372. A narrow staircase in the wall takes us to the next floor, passing by the room of the castle's chaplain. The lower section contains a dungeon, measuring only 1.7 meters by 1.7 meters. The impressive castle presents a host of fascinating artifacts that bring the Middle Ages to life. Mouse Castle, which is actually called Thurnberg, was the favorite residence of the electors of Trier. It was one of the most modern and technically most interesting constructions of its time. In the middle of the river Rhine, near the village of Kaub, stands the castle Pfalzgrafenstein. This castle was built for the sole purpose of taking money or goods from boats that traveled along the river. Pfalzgrafenstein is one of many toll castles on the Rhine, but is unique in that it is located in the middle of the river, on the tiny island of Pfalz. King Ludwig of Bavaria built the Pfalz in 1327 in order to protect his borders. In 1338, a 12-meter-high wall was built around it, with 2 stories of gallery walks. Although the castle was modernized in 1607 and 1755, the majority of the complex dates from the 14th century. The city of Gor represents a high point in the architectural history of the Middle Rhine. Nearby is a magnificent ruin of Burg Rheinfels, one of the finest in the region. The Counts of Canzenalbuggen founded Rheinfels Castle around 1245. The castle was used as a count's residence and was one of the most significant centers of courtly life in the region. The castle came to the Landgraves of Hessen, who expanded Rheinfels to a fortress. Suneck Castle, probably built in the 11th century, was part of an expanded defense system of the Kornelimünster Abbey near Aachen. The new structure, with its massive keep and narrow courtyard from the 14th century, was rebuilt beginning in 1843 by King Frederick William IV of Prussia and his brothers as a deliberately modest hunting lodge. Many castles grace the banks of the Middle Rhine near Burg Suneck. But where there are many castles, there are many quarrels. In the early days, these quarrels never ended happily, as in the case of Burg Suneck. Siebold of Suneck and Hans Welt von Fürstenberg fought over an initially trivial matter, but Siebold was the type who held a grudge and would not let the quarrel end. In recent years, there have been strenuous efforts by government bodies, private associations, and individuals alike to conserve what is recognized as a unique and spectacular landscape, yet one that is vulnerable to a variety of threats. The Middle Rhine Valley is a combination of historical, cultural, and natural features that make it one of the most picturesque and romantic river landscapes in the world.